Okay, everyone. So I thought I'd do a bit of a different video than the rest of the videos in my YouTube channel. And the reason being is I think it'll be very beneficial for a lot of people who are wondering, should they get into IT? Do we need to invest the time, effort in order for us to work in it? And also a bit about where a good journey can go, or a journey that starts somewhere and ends at least in a good financial stability realm. And this is by no means clickbait. I am giving you the short story of my career. I'm going to give it to you with the context of how you can replicate this success. And let me tell you, I've seen a lot of other videos talking about short-term success or how do you do this in 1 year and such. This is by no means this journey. It took me about 13 years to reach where I am today. I'd say about 14 even. And this journey came to a position where I started very low and I ended and not necessarily ended, but I'm right now in the position that I am. And I would like to share with you some pointers, some things to give you a direction. I'm not saying it will be the same for your story. I am saying that this is a possibility, a destination to your journey, and it would have helped me if I knew it a bit earlier in life to reach it faster or to even understand if this is the right career track for me. And I hope you'll find this information useful, and I will be able to answer your questions or comments regarding this video. And if you want to hear more about it, I'll share with you more of my information. So I'll start with a spoiler, and this is by no means a boast. I'm just giving you pure stats, and I've tried to keep it as clean as possible without external interferences like bonuses and such. But today I'm making over 350K a year, USD, and this is basically what I've been making for the last 2 years. I am seeing a small bump this year, but in general, this is the area that I'm making my money reliably every year without special tricks. I'm doing a normal job, 9 to 5, so to speak, in the IT industry. And I'll tell you a bit about it when we'll start with the story. But that is the spoiler. So this is the very minimum achievable. At the very maximum, this is maybe a number that you can strive for, but definitely something you can make for yourself. Before I go to the story, and there is a story with numbers and a graph and some tables, I try to keep it simple so you won't be too much bored. I'll give a bit about how it went. I want to talk a bit about how to replicate this success or how to make this part of your strategy. First of all, I will give the context of people who live in the rich part of the world. And when I say rich, I'm not necessarily saying Switzerland, but a country that pays well to IT or high tech. And I mean pay well. I mean, if I look at my country, I don't live in the US, by the way, so the salaries are lower than the US, but I'm able to make about half of the US or 2/3 of the US salary in my country. And this is something that if is this is a touch point. I would say that you need to live in a country or you need to work for a company that originates from a country that is considered rich and pays good money for skilled labor. So that's your first objective if you want to replicate this type of success that I'm talking about. The second thing is to look for opportunities. And when I say look, I mean actively search for opportunities. No opportunities are handed to you, or at least to me, and no opportunities will be handed to you. When you work for the IT field, it's a skilled labor field. You need to learn a lot. You need to be ahead of the curve, always learn, always improve your skill set, but you need to spend at least a part of your time looking for your next opportunity. It doesn't necessarily mean actively job hunt, but it does mean to look at the trends of the market, what information, what knowledge is in high demand. It does mean that if you have friends in the field, you talk to them regularly to understand what they're going through, if they have opportunities in their workplace. And networking is important. And I would say a lot of my money came from seizing good opportunities. But it is something that you need to strive for. And if I was more socially active, obviously I'd have more opportunities, and people neglect this part, but it is a very important part in making high end money. You need to have friends at the right places. You need to have the option to interview to positions that are not open necessarily to the full public. A job that has a more than 200K price point is not necessarily going to be published every day in a company. It's not necessarily going to be published at all. It might be a very short list type of job opportunity, and you need to put your name out there and be active looking for those opportunities. The next point is to study hard and long term. This is a very hard topic to discuss because people don't understand the dedication and the requirements of how much more information you'll need to digest over the years of your experience. You have to read books, you have to watch video series, you have to spend time in a lab environment and in production environment, tinkering, studying, using the tools that you've been given or tools you've learned, and actually using them in practice, and all of these things takes a substantial amount of time. I can tell you that in my first 5 years of working in the IT field, I used to spend at least the bare minimum 2 to 3 hours a day, or 2 to 3 hours every 2 days studying. And this is something that I've kept as a schedule for 5 to 6 years even, before I started neglecting and doing it like once every 3 days or 4 days or once a week. And this does not mean I've neglected my studies. I've just had less amount of time to spend with theoretical training and a lot more time to spend on actual working and actually doing things on real environments. So it's really important for you to understand that you have to study hard and long term if you want to reach any kind of success of the level that I have today. I haven't seen too many people who casually arrive to the position of being an eye earner in IT without being some serious luck or a lot of friends. So I would suggest study hard long term. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't finish a course or a certification and then say, okay, I have it and I need to rest for 2 years. You need to keep at it for a long term. And the last point is to understand your value. And understand your value has 2 points. First, you need to understand, is my job truly valuable? I will give a few examples just as a context. If you work for an ice cream shop and you maintain their computer infrastructure, um, computers is not their main point. They're not their main focus. They're selling ice cream. If there's no sugar in the ice cream or if there's a problem with the recipes, that will be the main course of the business. So being an IT employee for an ice cream shop is not necessarily putting you in a high value position. Let's give another example. If you work for an internet service provider and you're a networking expert, obviously you're doing something in their core business. Your job is what they deliver in some degree. So you're a lot more valuable to this company, that you're worth a lot more in terms of true worth to the company. And you need to understand your position in any company you work with. I worked for companies that were using me to manage their internal infrastructure or using me to provide services for their internal employees. And then your value is as good as you give, but in terms of true value, it's still relatively low than a company that offers IT services or provides customers with your skill set or provide customers with products that you are a component of. And this is where you'll make more money because you're more valuable. You're closer to the money. You're closer to what you're giving back to the company. So it's really important to understand your value in the process. You need to work in a field that you love, of course, but you need to work in a place where your field, your particular skill set is shining. And this will be a very big impact to how much money you'll make and how much success you'll be, and the fame, and not just success and fame, but how much prestige internally and gratification from the company or gratitude from the company you'll get. So very important to understand. So I'm going to cover a bit about the story of how I progressed in the IT field, and I'm going to keep it really high level. I try to make it very brief overview, like the position we're scraped to the class of it. I did a bit of a different job description in most of these positions, but it's for me to give you the concept of how it worked, what was the opportunities, what are the things that you should be aware of. I'm not going to cover each point here, so if you want to see the numbers or if you have a specific question, you can send a comment to this video and I'll do my best to answer. But I do want to give you the trend and the things I've noticed based on my experience. So for starters, I started very low. As you can see, I started as a help desk technician. The salary wasn't high, the pay wasn't great, the job experience wasn't great, but I was already doing some initial certification. I did my MCSA, I did some other certification to get me started, CCNA and such. And this was my entry. So when you're starting out, don't really care about your salary. Don't be like, I need to make this amount of money. Just get started, get some experience. The experience is what matters at the beginning. Once you get some experience, you should try to shift. You don't need to stay a help desk technician for 5 years in order for you to obtain enough experience. You don't need to have 20 certification to get your entry position in IT a bit higher, like a system administrator, a network administrator, and things of this nature. The moment you have an opportunity, you should apply to positions, and once you have it, you should take it. The job difficulty as a system administrator beginning is relatively easy. You need to work a bit harder. As you can see, there's not a significant bump in pay, or at least I didn't have a significant bump in pay when I moved to a system administrator, and it didn't really matter because this was the real experience that I needed to obtain for another year or two in order for me to be well versed in the field. After about 2.5 years, I got an opportunity of an IT professional in another company. So in this stage in time, I've been working for about 4 years, and I've made free hops between free employers. And do I recommend it? Really depends. I recommend it if you have opportunities that are too good to miss out. I recommend it if you see there's no true value in staying another year or two. You won't learn enough, you won't have enough opportunities internally in the company and such. So it makes sense to jump between job positions in different companies because you'll be exposed to more experience, you'll be exposed to more better opportunities, and you will improve. As you can see, the trend was every time I moved the position, I worked harder, it was longer hours, the difficulty was higher, and the pay is not necessarily a linear curve. It wasn't improving as much as my difficulty. And this is something that I want you to note in the first part of the 5 years, 6 years of experience. You're going to work harder, you're going to study harder, you're going to work harder in your certification, and the salary will not grow exponentially. You'll just improve slightly and slightly improve. And it will start changing in a moment where I'm going to start talking about the next opportunities that I received, and you'll see how it pays off in the long term. So stay tuned. Um, once I worked in the new company as an IT professional, I got the opportunity to be promoted and manage the IT team and become the IT manager in my company. What happened immediately is that I started focusing more on my job. I had to manage the team. I had to govern a lot of people. I managed 7 people in the company. I did continue working on my certification and knowledge, but my difficulty, the job became harder because of the management curve, the management administration overhead that I had to do, and also the reports that I need to file up to the management, the things that I had to participate as meetings, and also all the hard things that are happening are the usually they are funneled for the manager to either decide or take action. So there was a lot of hardship. I've been working for 255 hours on average, and I want to point out that this is an average. Sometimes it was 250, 260. On average, it was 235. So it's really stressing that this was a very stressful job. But this represents a point in my career where I've accumulated enough experience to be holding a very important position, a very serious job description, and basically I was being compensated for my knowledge and my importance to some degree, and received about 81K total, which was very good at the time based on my age and my knowledge and experience. After a few years at that position, I've moved to another opportunity in a different company as a system architect. I was an IT focused system architect, generally designing systems that are network related or system related. And this was my main focus and my experience. As you can see, I have 22 certificates and certification at this point, and I want to touch it that it's not necessarily the quantity. You can have 50 certificates and they're useless, and you can have one certificate which is amazing. I'm not saying you should acquire as many certification as possible. I am saying that this is a good reference to look at yourself and say, how am I progressing in my field? Am I improving my knowledge? Am I pursuing knowledge with passion? Because these certificates are like ribbons. They're not really impressive if you only have one or two, but when you're starting to be an expert that has 20, 30 certificates, this is a very impressive thing to showcase to potential employers. And it's also something that gives you a very broad perspective in the IT field. So I would recommend it for you to look at it as a benchmark. 15, 20 certification after 5 years of experience, that's phenomenal. That's something that I look for when I hire someone to a position. I look for someone who is interested in learning. And when I moved to the system architect, the difficulty went down. So the job was a lot less stressful and hard because I didn't need to manage a team. I also was focused on telling people not what they should be doing, but what we should do as a company. This is the design, this is the architecture of this solution. I was focusing on creating solutions for a problem. So the position was much easier. It just required in-depth knowledge. The pay was also the peak that I had in my career at my time, 170K per year. Very nice, very close to the high end of what the salary position in my country are. If you work in the other countries like the US or Canada, the numbers can be much higher when you reach this position. But in the country that I'm living, this is the high point. In terms of the next step I made, I was starting to be more and more interested in security in the last 3 to 5 years of my experience prior to this position. But I wasn't really a hands-on security guy who worked with the security system from the morning to the night. And this is something that I wanted to rectify. And I found a position that will take me as a security administrator. And basically, what I want to show you here is that knowledge transitions. So I wasn't a security expert on day one of that job, but the employer that hired me knew that I'm very skilled and adept in network security and networking in system security. So the knowledge that is transitioned is something that you can take. And I wasn't starting as an entry security administrator or even a middle ground security administrator. I was given a senior security position administrator from the beginning, and I took this job. And after, I'd say, 3 to 4 months of studying really hard security space, I was pretty much in the right zone. And there was really no telling that I wasn't doing security full time for 10 years before that, because I was able to meet my job description and do the job properly. And I had the background to cover it, to cover the weak spots and understand it. I wasn't working full time at this point, but as you can see, even without working full time, my salary was very close to what I earned as a system architect, and I was very happy with the fact that I had more time to myself and relax a bit. This is a point that I want to mention something that is not good in my career, and this is something that also when I created this video was made more apparent. From that point forward, in the next 3 to 5 years, I've really worked really hard to not do certificates, or so it seems. I took the pedal off the gas, or so to speak, and this is not a good trend by no means. I want to keep doing certifications. I want to keep studying, but it doesn't mean I stopped studying. I kept studying a lot. I read a lot. I improved my knowledge in a lot of fields where I was weaker, but the passion to pursue certification and the passion to pursue the IT field is diminished, and I'm not doing it as rigorously as I did it in the beginning. But I did invest the extra time in production, creating training at work, understanding how things operate on a much deeper level, improving my knowledge in specific fields. It's not that you're stopping to learn. You might change the perspective and pursue other things, or soft skills, or more a deep level understanding of fields that are not necessarily requiring certification. I would say that when I shifted to the next position of a system architect, the job itself was very difficult. It required a lot of decision making. The decision making is very hard when you're a system architect that is focused on security, because it is not like an IT solution or a system solution that needs to function. It needs to function with the constraints of security. It needs to be secure from threats. You need to take into consideration a lot of things that are less important when you're designing just a network or just an environment, a system environment. And this is something that causes also a lot of backlash. You design something,
a department doesn't like the design because it collides with their ease of use, their customer experience, and such. And you need to make a lot of compromises to make everything work and everyone happy and maintain high security value. In this position, I was already doing a lot more financially. I was around 180K, and this represents the upper limit of IT in my country in terms of budget or in terms of salary. About 200K, that's as much as you can get, even if you're more experienced and have more knowledge and experience in terms of years of work. This is the high end of what you can make in my country as a system IT architect or any other position that is IT related. And this brought me to my next step, which is to become an IT consultant. And what I've done at this point, I've had enough knowledge and experience that I can transition into an IT consultancy. I've done IT consultancy either as a system architect, as a security expert, as a system expert. I've done a lot of things in my field in the career, so I had a lot of opportunities to fit to a lot of positions. I'm not saying I can do anything in IT, but I have a very vast knowledge that I can leverage in IT, security, and networking system. And this is something that gave me a lot of opportunity to either give design high level solutions or even hands on task if I need to do it to get my hands dirty, so to speak. So I found myself collaborating with a few other IT consultancies, and we opened an IT consultancy between me and four other consultants, and we're able to provide this consultant services to a wide range of customers. It's not as stable per month, but I've been doing it for a few years now, and I can reliably say that we're earning each one of us about 350 plus K each year. And this is something that represent a very high standard to what can you can make as an IT expert in the field today. I want to summarize this in a bit of a graph, and this graph is something that will showcase a few things that the numbers before can show you. First of all, at the beginning, there is a peak that happens. You can see that the more time, the more experience, and the harder your position, the more money you'll make per hour. And you can see this trend in my first 3 or 4 positions, and it kind of reached this point where it stops being linear. You have to invest the first 5, 6 years, hardship, difficulties, knowledge acquiring, all of this before you're starting to see exponential growth. And this is the thing that you need to keep in mind. When you study a course or when you start working in IT, you're going to be starting low and growing for the next 5 years. And after 5 years, the good opportunities start to show. The good options are beginning to appear. And then you're not necessarily going to work harder, but you're definitely going to earn more money per hour. You're definitely going to improve in terms of how much money you're making per hour. And this is something that will cover you all the way until the end. And as you can see, the trend again is the harder you work, you make more money. But this time, it's not a very close line like in the beginning. You make much more money if you work hard. You can decide also that you've reached your end goal and you can start working less hard and make a lot of money as well. This is the journey if you look at it from a perspective of the trends. And I have to say that it's a very rewarding journey if you work hard. You'll have your peak after about 5 years where you're going to see your experience and your knowledge pay off. And then and the next time if you were start working harder again, you'll be able to see a lot more rise in income. And that is what I wanted to share with you today. I thought that this will be a very good discussion point. So if you have questions or if you want to understand more about the journey, feel free to leave comments. This is something that is tailored to my journey. I've seen other people's journey. If there's interest in this type of content, I can upload a few more videos to demonstrate the experience of a few of my family members that are also working in IT and a few of my friends. I would say the experiences are very similar in terms of the initial curve, but they're very different in the second part based on the field or based on specific choices that they made in their careers. And I can share with you for context. Uh, anyway, thank you. I hope you find this useful, and I'll see you in the next video.